Welcome to the 8th running of Ukraine's EuroAtlantic Future Forum number 8, entitled The Three Cs Initiative Paradigm, Examining the Possibilities for Energy, from Energy to Security. My name is Walter Zaryckyj. Over the last 3 months, I've had the privilege of being the event's program coordinator. Today, I will have the distinct honor to be its host moderator. As tradition has shaped the UAEF forums, the EuroAtlantic Future Forums, my first task before turning to the opening remarks session with our host, Bush School Executive Director, Colonel McDonough, and our distinguished featured speaker, the Deputy Head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Dr. Ihor Zhovkva, I'd like to be able to touch and should be able to touch on two matters. We have come to call them the why and the how of the gathering, or simply the context of our discussion and the rules of our discussion. But as circumstances are currently dictating it, with the nightly raids in Kyiv that wreak havoc on Zoom links, I will do only the context setting part, that's the why, before the mentioned opening remarks, and then leave the outline of the rules part for the rest of the proceedings. Okay, quickly, to the why. 25 years ago, literally on the cusp of the new millennium, Ukraine, both its executive branch of government and its legislative branch, embraced what has been called a Western vector in its policy determinations, essentially looking to create A, closer bilateral ties with the US, B, closer bilateral ties with Canada, C, eventually pursuing membership in EU, and ultimately seeking membership in NATO. In a word, finding ways to become a paid-up member of the EuroAtlantic community. In the West, the Friends of Ukraine took to running an annual set of roundtables called the Ukraine Quest for Mature Nation Statehood series to monitor that progress, Ukraine's move westward. The Quest roundtables were successful enough to spawn a new forum series dealing with more specific matters. Economic integration under the moniker US-Ukraine Business Networking Events, security integration, the US security dialogues, energy, the energy integration on the US-Ukraine energy dialogues, cultural integration under the Ukrainian Historical Counter series. Those roundtables also spawned interest in Ukraine's place in or about relations with regional European integrative processes. POUCHI, Eastern Partnership Initiative, Guam, Vyšegrad Group, Weimar, BSEC, which is the Black Sea Economic Cooperation Group. Ukraine's EuroAtlantic Future series became home for the discussion of these processes. This year, Steve Blank, who's just came to our event, just came in a backgrounder meeting about our series going forward, along with Janusz, beloved Janusz Bugajski, who's just recently passed, and his wonderful wife has agreed to be part of our discussion today. They noddingly approved the idea that we use or look more closely at an old Polish construct called intermarium, від morza do morza do morza, as a serious integrative device. After all, the intermarium construct had a modern counterpart. It's called the Three Cs Initiative. The forum we're about to engage in was thus born or given life. And with that, all I simply want to do is now move on to our first word session. I would like to ask Colonel McDonough to our gracious host to the podium to take over the session. And while he's doing that, I simply want to tell everyone and let everyone know that Colonel McDonough's resume speaks for itself. Note the bio in the brochure, and in my humble opinion, it seems clear why the basic steering of this prestigious school, the Bush School, has been left in his hands. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So we're at Texas A&M, so I'll start off with howdy. There we go. Good job. It is my distinct honor to welcome all of you to Texas A&M and the Bush School of Government and Public Service here in Washington, D.C. We are guided by the legacy of President George H.W. Bush, our 41st president, and his belief that public service is a noble calling. As we prepare our graduate students for leadership and policy-making roles, which are inexorably linked to strategic relationships with our international allies. The Bush School's mission is to educate future decision makers and enhance by opportunities to experience and engage in current geopolitical conversations like the ones we're holding here today. I am pleased to introduce the opening speaker for today's forum, Ihor Zhovkva, Deputy Head of Office of the President of Ukraine. Like many of our students, Dr. Zhovkva studied international relations. He went on to earn a PhD in political science and became an associate professor before serving the Ukrainian parliament and holding numerous positions in the foreign policy department. He was the chief of staff for the Deputy Prime Minister for European Integration and headed the Department of International Cooperation and Investment Marketing at the State Agency for Foreign Investment. In 2014, he transitioned to the president's administration, and in 2019, he assumed his current role as Deputy Head of Office of the President of Ukraine. Thank you to Dr. Zhovkva for joining us virtually here today and for your extraordinary leadership and service to Ukraine. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Kyiv, and thank you so much for having me here. It's a great intellectual challenge to talk to you today. But first of all, let me thank all the organizers, the Center for US-Ukrainian Relations. Thank you, American Foreign Policy Council, and certainly Bush School of Government and Public Service. You're really doing a very important job. And I see that it is already the 8th forum. It's very important to have Ukraine and what is going on in this part of the world on your radars. And we all know what is going on. The Russian aggression is still, unfortunately, continues. First of all, I would like to express really gratitude for the all countries who are got together here. I examined the list and I saw many countries members to the 3 Seas initiative, and really very important to have Ukraine participating in this very important initiative, because we're having a common fight. We're having a common fight against a Russian aggressor already for 3.5 years in the open Russian aggression, but well more than 10 years after the start of the aggression in 2014. And if before that you can claim that it was only Ukraine who was suffering from Russian aggression, now as we speak, we see that, unfortunately, Russia is showing its desire to spread the aggression well beyond Ukraine to other European countries. And Russian drones are flying now in Romania, Poland, in the Baltic Seas, or even Germany and Belgium. And this is a clear sign that Russia will not stop. Had not we stopped Russia in Ukraine, it would have gone further to your countries already now. But we are fighting, we are stopping them, and we're doing it with your support. The shadow vessels of Russian Federation are traveling across the world ocean, and this is again our continued, maybe lack of still unity, maybe lack of still national instruments, but the Russian vessel fleet, the Russian shadow vessels are still floating, and we need to do something with this. Certainly, Russia is testing our unity and resilience, and certainly Russia wants to restore and to redefine the European and international architecture, the architecture of security. The topic of today's our discussion is examining the possibilities from energy to security. Right, energy was, is, and unfortunately always been one of the key Russian instruments to spread its influence over all the countries who are dependent on Russian energy resources. Ukraine showed well before how it is manageable to be deprived from the Russian energy resources. We were heavily dependent on Russian oil and gas even before the Russian aggression and after the start of Russian aggression, but we managed to do it in this difficult circumstances. I will give you only one example. We disconnected our electricity system from the united system of Russia and Belarus exactly on the first day of Russian aggression, Russian open aggression on 24th of February 2022, which had to be a test. But for us, it was the crucial step, and we never got back to the Russian unified system and got us plugged into the ENTSO-E, the United European Energy Systems, and this allows us now to help each other in the difficult times. So, I mean, we cannot allow Russia to get their thoughts and their actions done. So that's why we have to strongly unite our efforts amidst the fourth year of the aggression. We are now having the very difficult period in Ukraine ahead of us, the period of autumn, the end of autumn, and the whole winter period. This will be the very difficult, might be the most difficult winter throughout the last 4 years. And they certainly will use the coal and energy as weapons against our people, weaponizing the energy. This is the tactics which Russia is using and will be using. Probably this winter can be the Putin's last chance, and helping Ukraine to get through this winter would be very important for all your countries. Your countries are having the list of what we need in order to survive this winter. Thank you for your leaders. Thank you for your governments. Thank you for your people for helping us to survive. As President Trump said several times on numerous occasions, peace can only be achieved through strength. So that's why when we're talking about now the possibility of peace negotiations, and we are thankful to the countries who are helping us, and this is President of the United States, this is the coalition of the willing countries, this is the key European, not only European countries. Everyone wants peace to be established in Ukraine, but only just and lasting peace. There's only one person who doesn't want peace to be established in Ukraine, and this is the aggressor, Putin. So Ukraine, together with you, understanding that Russia is relying on its oil and gas to continue the war against Ukraine, as well as waging a hybrid warfare, is having a very clear and set of actions which we will amplify in order with the support of each and every of your country. First, it's sanctions. We appreciate what US is doing. We should appreciate the recent sanctions introduced by President Trump against the biggest energy companies of Russia, such as Rosneft and Lukoil. And very important that these sanctions were perfectly synchronized with the 19th package of the European Union, which also introduced lots of sanctions in the energy sphere. But this is not enough. I'm talking about both US sanctions and European Union sanctions. By the way, thank you, Canada, for yesterday's package of sanctions. UK is also introducing new packages, but unfortunately, this is not enough. That's why EU is preparing now the 20th package of sanctions, and we are hoping that US will be appearing with further sanctions. We know about draft legislation in the Congress. My president was speaking yesterday to the senators. We will be asking and welcoming more and more strong US sanctions against the aggressor. Certainly, the implementation of sanctions is also mattering. So we count on introducing secondary sanctions, influencing the countries who are still using the Russian energy resources, buying Russian energy resources, thus feeding the Russian war machine. Certainly, we also need to close gaps in order to prevent circumvention of sanctions, despite the very strict restrictive measures. And here we need to sit together and think of the most important, the most efficient mechanism. Secondly, I was mentioning already about Russian so-called shadow fleet. Adding the vessels to the sanction list is a very good job, but it's far from being enough. They know the tricks how to circumvent this sanction list. So what is very important is to make the life of the vessel fleet unbearable and impossible. What is very important to have personal sanctions against the crew, against the captains, against the crew of the vessels, against the owners of these vessels, and only these will help. It's also very important to make the necessary inspections in the international waters, because we know the main routes of this shadow fleet. It's the Baltic Sea, it's the Danish Straits, it's the 60% of this shadow fleet is coming through these directions. So we're actively working with the Nordic and Baltic states who are already making practical measures. They are stopping the ships, they are making inspections, they are making all the necessary checks, and they are making these efforts systematic. So it would be very important to have it. And since we're talking about united efforts, I think it's high time to introduce a permanent NATO operation in the Baltic Sea in order to prevent Russian shadow fleet freely passing throughout these waters. Certainly, all the environmental issues should be also taken into account. Thirdly, having the Europe energy security and resilience. Once again, I mentioned to you the example of how we joined the electricity united system of Europe. We're also having the united gas and oil infrastructure. You know that Ukraine possesses the possibilities to deposit European gas into in our own underground storages up to 15 BCM, and Russia is trying to bomb them, and Russia is trying to destroy them, but in vain. So it would be very important that each and every member of the European continent should be disconnected from the Russian energy supply. We know that President Trump is heavily working on this. We know which EU member states are still using Russian oil and gas. Again, very important that European Union has cut the period of completely disconnecting from Russian energy system. But very important to be very active on this, because once again, the biggest amount of money, the biggest revenues to Russian war and military machine are coming from the energy resources. Would be very important to also to use the US gas, US LNG gas as a source of energy for the European countries. Ukraine is ready to do this. You know that unfortunately, because of the Russian continuing attacks on our gas extractive industry, we are now having the deficit of natural gas for this coming winter. We are working actively with our European partners, but we're also ready to think about having the US LNG gas coming into our systems, and we're already talking with our partners in such countries as Lithuania or Greece or Poland. This will be yet another clear evidence of our unity in this very important dimension. And let's collectively provide a clear alternative to Russian oil and gas. And yes, it's time to finally cut off the metastasis of Russian cancer. To summarize, I can promise you that Ukraine will stand firm, and our people will continue to fight with courage and resilience, feeling and understanding your support. It is freedom, dignity, and the right of every nation to choose its own future. You mentioned today, Walter, about European and EuroAtlantic choice of Ukraine. This choice stays as it is. This choice is about Ukraine's freedom. Most participants in the Three Seas initiative experienced the misfortune of living behind the Iron Curtain. We never, from now on, and even after getting our independence, we never wanted to come back, to return to USSR, to zero, or whatever thoughts Russia is having. And Russia is absolutely clear understanding that without Ukraine, they could not be an empire like they dream to be. But we need to be harbored in the European Union and NATO. And here I want to quote from the recent declaration of the Three Seas Summit, which took place this year in Poland, where it states, I quote, "Ukraine's membership in the EU is among the most valuable security guarantees the EU can provide," end of quote. Indeed, this is what we are discussing with our European Union partners, with our key partners in the world. We desire to be part of the European Union. We fulfilled all the necessary criteria, and we made all necessary legislative procedures. We have undergone the screening procedure, and yes, would be very good if the cluster one, the fundamentals cluster, the essentials cluster, would be open for Ukraine together with Moldova. And Ukraine and Moldova certainly should not be decoupled on this way to the membership to the EU, which we started together. Just to remind you, on the 5th day of open Russian aggression, on the 28th of February, my president placed a bid for membership to the European Union. And from that time, we passed a very long way towards the beginning of the negotiations, but we will be urging all the member states to the EU to be very open and, to use this merit-based approach and to judge Ukraine according to its achievements. Certainly, when Ukraine be part of the European Union, this will be the end of any dreams for Russia to restore any kind of Soviet or Russian empire. And membership of Ukraine to the EU is a part and parcel of the security guarantees, not only for the European countries, not only for the European continents, but for the whole world. Let us work together to achieve this goal decisively and swiftly. We are doomed by geography to do this, and we will be doing this. There is no time for delay. Thank you, and Slava Ukraini.
Dr. Zhovkva, it occurs to me that this is as extensive as possible. I'm not sure how many questions anybody might after this wonderful presentation, but I will ask, would you permit one or two questions?
I think we have time for one question.
Okay, then I'm opening it up. Microphone. And Roman, perhaps you might want to stand somewhere where they might see you. Yeah.
Дуже дякую за вашу промову. Thank you for your speech. It was interesting. I just have one question. You mentioned the Three Seas conference, and do you feel that the Three Seas initiative can be a good control point for energy help during the winters, the severe winter months?
Yeah, thank you for this, Roman. First of all, I mean, you probably know that Ukraine is actively participating in each and every summits of Three Seas. My president was participating in the last summit and the previous summits. Ukraine, unfortunately, is not the full-fledged member to the Three Seas initiative yet, on the obvious reasons, because we're not members to the EU. We're having the status of associated participating state. But I think we have all the possibilities, to be together with you coordinating our efforts. First of all, because Ukraine is bordering one of the seas, namely the Black Sea. So, I mean, geographically, we're absolutely fitting into this format. Secondly, this Ukraine is an inherent member, or geographically, we are part of Central and Eastern Europe. And again, it's our destiny to go together, be it security or be it infrastructure. Thirdly, today is the future of Europe is decided on the territory of Ukraine, and we all know what we're talking about. Everything matters. The delivery of weapons to Ukraine matters. The defense of our energy infrastructure matters. The air defense matters. Joint energy matters. Again, today we are asking for help and for support. We are asking for the spare parts. We are asking for the credits for the gas or for the gas itself, or we are asking for the equipment for gas extracting industry. But if we are together today, and we're feeling the support of the Three Seas initiative countries, that's why, yes, answering to your question, it helps. But tomorrow, not if, but when we survive this winter and when we will bring and establish just and lasting peace in Ukraine, Ukraine will be a part and parcel of the joint energy system of Europe. We have many resources of natural gas, and we will be continuing to use them. We will restore this gas extraction system which Russia is severely destroyed. We have the deposits of oil. We have our transportation system, both oil pipelines and gas pipelines. We are now cutting them all because we are not having the desire to transport or use the Russian energy resources. We have the underground storages. Once again, 15 billion cubic meters can be stored yearly. And this could be a European gas, this could be a US LNG, this could be the gas which can be stored at the most at some periods and then can be lifted up at the most difficult periods. And once again, Ukraine has a very huge electricity system. You know that we were producing a huge amount of electricity, but unfortunately for the time being, the Zaryckyj nuclear power plant, which is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe, is being occupied, been disconnected, not producing the electricity. But when we'll restore, we'll regain our territory, this will be coming back to the energy system of Ukraine, and we can be exporting the electricity to the European Union countries, as well as now they are helping to us. So yes, let's combine our efforts, let's unite our efforts, because energy is one of the key corners and key, elements in our joint European security system. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So thank you for that wonderful and extensive answer.
Thank you.
With this, I want to thank you, sir, generally for having joined us. We knew that you would give us a very significant component. We're going to be able to follow up in the next session from a perspective. Yours was from the Kyiv perspective. Ours is from the is going to be from the U.S. perspective. Now, I also want to thank Colonel McDonough.
Yes.
McDonough. Sir, I just it threw me off because the general, when General Kimmett came in, he said, "I knew a Jim McDonough, West Pointer, 69, and so on and so forth." And,
That's not me.
and I said, he may be a little too young. Yeah, I was going to say, maybe very good, but I thank you for the stewardship of this entire thing. Dr. Shenkaruk, when she suggested, I'm really proud that you managed to take the time to do this. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank the Bush School. Thank you. And with that, as I mentioned, I will turn quickly to the how, or the rules of discussion, because I've seen some of our chairmen have made it here. I see Glenn is here already. So it turns out that the rules of the discussion are all focus sessions, presentations, whether delivered as a single voice or as duet, will average about 13 to 15 minutes. And we have our second discussion leader, Ambassador Herbst, has just entered. So the focus sessions, and the next one that's coming up is a focus session, will have an average of about 13 to 15 minutes and about 5 minutes of questions. Then I realized that we didn't serve the coffee and water for people who want the coffee and water right after that session for about 3 minutes, and literally for 3 minutes, I would ask everybody to get a coffee or a water. I also have just seen Margareta Asimova show up, and I wanted to say, at some point during our session, right after our major coffee break, I would want to honor your wonderful husband, who's the architect, actually, of this Moja to Moja in modern times. You and he are both, I would want to honor with a moment of silence. And so as for the panel sessions, we abide by the following regime. Discussion leaders get 6 to 7 minutes to open the topic, and the moderators write a first question plus chairing of the event. Each panelist gets 6 to 7 to present their thoughts on the TSI, future, present, and future, with the country in mind that they've been assigned to reflect upon. Each special discussant gets 6 or 7 to 8 to present their thoughts on TSI, present and future, and the sector of life, the economy or defense, that they're assigned to reflect upon. And then the question and answer should be about 15 minutes in length. The discussion leaders should try to harvest a first round of questions and get responses. If time permits, then the discussion leaders can try a second round. Questions and comments from the audience should be no more than half a minute. And please stay on topic, because we really can float around. Ukraine is a very interesting topic these days. Anyway, to keep the proceedings moving in timely fashion, timekeepers will be employed. We have interns to do that. So with that, before we do that coffee, we are going to do our first focus session, a very important one. And I have 2 gentlemen who I've seen in a conference 2 weeks ago, and I thought they were fabulous. And so they are going to give us a presentation about the 3 Cs initiative efforts from 2015 to 2024. I'm going to be asking the 2 co-speakers, and please sit where assigned, Mr. Max Pyziur, who's a Downstream director of the Energy Policy Research Foundation, and his co-worker, Matt Zaryckyj, senior research analyst for the Energy Policy Research Foundation.
I'm better in front of a microphone, so.
You really are?
Yeah.
Okay, and you will have a presentation, PowerPoint? Okay.
And Matthew needs to stand up well.
Right. Okay.
Do the same thing, right?
Right, exactly right. Okay,
Okay.
then thank you very much. It's
Yeah.
all yours. Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you to the leadership of CUSUR for having us. Just to go through my languages, Dzień dobry, Vitayu vas, and if there's a Romanian constituency, Hai Noroc. Do we have the PowerPoint? So we're heading up with the first slide here. Thank you. So the Radetzky March is a preview of coming attractions. So we'll get to it, but just so you know, that's one of the places that we're headed. Next slide, please. My name is Max Pyziur. I'm a research director at the Energy Policy Research Foundation. We use the acronym EPRINC, and our website is eprinc.org. That's how you can find us on the internet. I'm here with my colleague, Matthew Sawoski, our senior research analyst, whose focus is on energy and national security. We're a not-for-profit, nonpartisan think tank. We were established in 1944. We do analyses of the gamut of energy, oil, petroleum products, electricity, et cetera. We have partnerships with other organizations, notably the Institute for Energy Economics Japan, as well as the Ministry of Energy, Trade, and Industry of Japan. Similar to CUSUR, we host events. In this picture is an example of an event that we had at the Cosmos Club, held in December 2022. The back of the gentleman's head on the right side, that's Tom Pyle, who is in charge of energy for the first Trump administration during the transition team. Way in the back, you'll see Senator Dan Sullivan trying to promote his Alaska LNG. To the right of him is someone from METI. To the left of him is our president, Lucian Pugliarese, who is worrying about how he can pay for all this extravagance at the Cosmos Club. Next slide, please. Thank you to Walter Zaryckyj and the other organizers of this event. Our motivation for being here is that we want to be a part of this game. We want to talk about energy security. We want to talk about national security. The legacy of our organization starts in this realm with the work on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We had two people, Larry Goldstein and John Lichtblau, who were critical of the formation of the U.S. Petroleum Reserve. It's the foremost example of physical architecture projecting national energy security in the United States. Similarly, with Matthew, we wanted to move in to a realm where we could work on European national security and energy security. 2 months before the 8th summit in Bucharest in 2023, we decided to begin research on a briefing. We published the briefing 2 days before the summit in September of 2023 in the hopes of being recognized. A lot of our examples and data are taken from this particular briefing. The QR code takes you to the briefing, by the way. Some of the example, what happened was that Greece became a member. So not all of our data, not all of our exhibits have Greece, but the general point is that this is the founding component and the foundation of our efforts in this particular realm. Let's see. Next slide, please. So this is our presentation outline. This is what we're going to go through. This is pretty much replicates the table of contents that was showing up in the previous report. Precursors and conceptual beginnings, economics, energy. Matthew will give an overview of the priority project list with a strong analysis of that. Next slide, please. So this is a map of the current 3Cs initiative, the full member states. There's also Ukraine and Moldova that are partner participants. All members, full members, are EU members. Moldova and Ukraine have the highest they can achieve by being non-EU countries. As the name indicates, the countries are all bordered by the Adriatic, Baltic, and Black Seas, as Walter reference from C to C to C, or as I can't do it in Polish. I apologize. Three. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Okay. Three C's initiatives aim is to improve north-south energy transport and digital infrastructure in order to boost economic development. As Matthew succinctly summarized in the paper, many of the most important political and economic issues for these countries cannot be solved domestically by each state adopting individual policies. Instead, they require a regional strategy. Three C's initiatives exist to address these types of problems. Three C's initiative exists in two distinct forms. Ideologically, it symbolically represents a commonality of values and priorities among Central European nations. Organizationally, it represents a concrete collaboration of these member states. It has no permanent employees, but Poland's foreign ministry is looking ahead, and they keep an office available for full-time employees. Next slide, please. When you have a chance. So an exhibit taken from the briefing, it includes Greece here. These are critical precursors and conceptual beginnings of the organization. There are 4 entities listed here. They exhibit the notion of being a supranational polity without singular distinct national identity. Rather, they're a collection of nations and ethnics. Critically, the first one is the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, a constitutional monarchical system, confederation that conferred considerable autonomy to its region, a monarch who is elected by the Szlachta, or the nobility, or oligarchy, not dynastic. The second one being the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and that was the reference to the Radetzky March at the beginning, a multinational constitutional monarchy, distinctly dynastic, bordering the Adriatic Sea. Third concept is intermarium, which was proposed in 1920, something not realized, but as its name recognizes the waters surrounding the territory. In Polish, Międzymorze, I assume that's also in Romanian, in Ukrainian, Międzymorze. Next slide, please. We're getting there. Okay, thank you. One of the things in reviewing the briefing that we did, the thing that Intermarium 3 C's initiative evokes is ideas of Halford Mackinder. He was a renowned late 19th century, early 20th century British geographer and politician. 2 particular works, The Geographical Pivot of History, and the second work, 1990, Democratic Ideals and Reality. In the first one, there's this notion of an equilibrium of maritime and land power in a temperate geographical zone. I think that's really important here. If you think about what the 3 C's initiative is doing, it's consider what happened in the United States when it was first settled. You had a bunch of settlements along the East Coast, but economically things only really began to flourish once you had something like the Erie Canal built, and you could access the bounty of the heartland and bring it to ports, and vice versa. The trade that you do at the ports, bring it inland. So something is similar here is key to the 3 C's initiative. The second point that Mackinder made was that he saw the region as a bulwark against the threat of Russia. In some way that diminishes the countries of the 3 C's. They're seen as a periphery, not as something that is integral to Europe. Next slide, please. Thank you. John Herbst is here someplace. Or somebody said he was here. Anyway, I wanted to acknowledge Ambassador Herbst because he's with the Atlantic Council, and bringing it close to the present, what was key for the founding of the 3 C's initiative is this particular document that was co-published by the Atlantic Council and CEEP, Completing Europe from the North-South Corridor to Energy, Transportation, Telecommunications Union. Among other things, it emphasized the relevancy and material importance of think tanks, something also what this organization does. Texas is A&M's Public Policy Institute here. So we don't just sit around and talk about things. We are relevant to the process, to the political process of realizing these sorts of types of things. In stressing the necessity of establishing a north-south corridor, I brought this map up again, and what I did was I put in the natural gas pipelines, and what you see is the east-west aspect of the natural gas pipelines. What you don't see is a pipeline going from Poland into Bulgaria or Romania, and that's the key thing. So the notion of east-west axis orient, it emphasized the importance of how the structure as it is now and what needs to be done. Next slide, please. So this is an exhibit taken from the briefing. I know it's cumbersome. I'm not asking you to memorize it right now, but maybe later. I apologize also that it omits Greece, but what we did was we consolidated a large amount of data to show some key stylized aspects about the population, the economy, and focus also on transport as a reason and motivator for the 3 Cs. Next slide, please. So abstracting from that previous, from that large slides, some key facts. If we look at the area, 474,000 square miles to the 3 Cs, this is minus Greece, in the context of 1.9 million square miles in the context of all of Europe, about 24% of the territory. If we look at the population's about 111 million out of a population of 545. So that's about 20.3%. If we look at GDP, this is where things become daunting. So the GDP of 3 Cs initiative total is 4 trillion, whereas all of Europe, it's 24 trillion. So it's 16.4%. So you see the disparity, the negative disparity difference between what you have in population and what you have in GDP output. You see the same thing in per capita, that the per capita GDP, 80%, effectively 20% less than the rest of the totality of Europe. Next slide, please. Key here is looking at freight transport. And this includes everything: maritime, road, rail, aviation combined. And it's a cumbersome metric, but at least you'll see the scale: 1,000 million metric ton kilometers. So regional freight transport is an important proxy of 3SI economic activity. Lagging considerably behind Europe, total 3SI freight was 827, or 10.4% of total Europe-wide amount of 7,945. If you look at just the maritime component, the second line there, the maritime freight situation is particularly striking. Despite having 2.2 thousand miles of coastal front, 2021 3SI maritime freight is only 215,000 MTKMS, or 4.1% of Europe's total. European maritime freight is dominated by established ports of Rotterdam, Antwerp, Hamburg, Algeciras. By comparison, the largest port in the 3 Cs initiative is Constanța in Romania. I'll skip the service and the agricultural breakdown and move on into the energy situation. Next slide, please. So this is taken from our briefing again, just to show you the distinction in energy production for electricity. TSI versus the rest of Europe minus TSI. Heavy reliance on coal, some growth, not much growth here. And in the rest of TSI, you have an increasing amount of solar and wind, but you still have a foundation, a very large foundation of nuclear power. Next slide, please. Consumption, where is it going? It's going into industry. That's a good sign, meaning factory development. Compare that to the rest of Europe. Europe is flattening out. So you see the potential for growth here. Next slide, please. Looking at hydrocarbon consumption. Despite economic growth, and this is a narrower window that, whereas the previous two slides went all the way back to 1992, this slide only goes back to 2017 up to 20. You see a slight diminution. Effectively, what this says, despite economic growth, hydrocarbon consumption is declining. That's potentially a good indication of efficiency gains. Next slide. Moving to energy security. Rather than burden you with a complicated formula with variables and coefficients and things like that, I figured I'd put a colorful Venn diagram here for you and break it out. And, just to be fair, it's sourced from a paper, a very serious academic paper. You break down energy security into three components: acceptability, availability, and economic affordability. And they overlap in particular places. So keep the three concepts in mind. We won't test you on them now, but I'll also discuss some of the overlap in the context of the 3 Cs initiative. Next slide. So acceptability, that was the first component there, if we're going clockwise. Acceptability, efficiency. Output is increasing. GDP output, economic output is increasing faster than energy consumption. That implies strong gains in energy efficiency. So at an annualized rate in the 3 Cs initiative, 5.3%. That's a good sign. Next slide, please. If we look at availability and we look at the subset of import dependence of crude oil, 2 slides, start with the first one. This is 3 Cs crude oil imports. The red, I'm trying to use color-coded stuff here. The red is Russia. And what you see is a diminution with a replacement a little bit from the US, but mostly from Central Asia and OPEC Mideast. If we look at, well, who's still in the 3 Cs initiative importing crude oil? Take the red, expand it over here. The blue, the rest of Europe, the rest of 3 Cs initiative, and who else is left? Czechia, Hungary, and Slovakia. And, August here is nodding his head. Just recently we learned that Donald Trump lifted the sanctions on Hungary, so that's probably going to continue. Next slide, please. We look at the situation of natural gas. Import dependence. It seems particularly strong on Russia. Again, color-coded Russia, and there's no diminution. Even though in the rest of Europe you've seen considerable, almost no imports now of Russian pipeline natural gas. So if we take the red component and expand it here, the rest of 3 Cs, the green is Bulgaria, and there's still some residual going into Slovakia and Greece. My assumption here is Bulgaria is not really buying and using all this natural gas. It's a concept known as wheeling. You wheel the gas through your country and sell it into other sovereignties. Next slide. Substituting some of this is US LNG exports moving into the 3 Cs initiative. With receiving terminals commissioned at Poland, Lithuania, Croatia, and Greece, you see a slow replacement of that dependence on Russian natural gas. If we look at the affordability, so we finally gone through 2 of the circles. We're now at the last one. We don't have a clear story here. There is a clear story. Things work in tandem, not separately. So this is where the war with Ukraine started. This is where there was the challenge of getting natural gas into all of Europe. Power prices or electricity prices jumped. So it didn't matter if you were in Western Europe, France or Germany, or in Poland and Romania. Are you showing me the time? Thank you. So the burden was shared equally here as far as the, so there's a problem of affordability. Next slide, please. Ukraine and European energy. This was referenced in the discussion, both the question and the deputy head of the presidential administration. Next slide, please. First, just the Ukraine's impairment of Russian crude and products. You see the attacks, you see the heightened aggression, if we're looking at a timeline from March 2024 to September 2025. Next slide, please. But what really is taking place is you're seeing less product production, less product exports, and more crude exports. Since you can't run the crude through the refineries, you put the crude on boats and you ship it to places like China or India. Next slide. This is a summary. A swift return of Russian refining capacity anytime soon remains unlikely. Transportation fuel shortages in Russia's domestic market are here to stay, increasing the probability of product export curbs. This is thanks to Kepler, a reputable organization monitoring maritime traffic. This stands directly in opposite to a recent article published in Foreign Affairs by Tatiana Mitrova and Sergei Vakulenko. They say, well, it's easy to fix refining capacity and it'll be back online at any time. Your choice as to whose opinion you want to pick there. Next slide, please. This was referenced. The deputy head spoke of how important it was to integrate Ukrainian storage with European storage. What we're seeing now in the last 12 months, if black line is the last 12 months, red line is the average, and this is the general trend. We're seeing injections into storage below trend, below average. Same thing in Ukraine. In the case of Ukraine, Ukraine made a distinct impact by backstopping Europe's natural gas storage in 2023. But once it came under attack, you see fewer injections into Ukraine than you have in the previous years. Next slide, please. This sort of tells the same story. Last winter was particularly severe in Europe, so it was broader and it was deeper. Consequently, you had depletions of natural gas storage, which needed to be replenished. If you look at it this way, these are natural gas the levels of storage of natural gas. You hit this trough, this is where we are. We're going into what looks like to be a strong winter right now, both here in North America and in Europe. This might not be enough gas to get us into February at the end of winter. Next slide. Okay. Just a discussion about electricity, but I'll stop here and let Matthew take over.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
Next slide.
Okay, yeah, so we want to be a little bit time conscious. So I'm just going to go very high level through the big takeaways of our analysis. Point number one, the 3Cs initiative is fundamentally an infrastructure organization. And infrastructure is security in two different ways. First is in the Mackinder way, the interior lines that Max talked about earlier. Secondly is that economic security is national security. So what we did is we did an analysis of the priority projects, which is a list of 3Cs initiatives started since 2018, kind of categorizing what are the major infrastructure project 3Cs would like to do. And the naive analysis is not very good because they group projects that have budgets in the millions of dollars, which budgets in the multiple billions of dollars. So we have to be a little bit intelligent. So next slide, please. As you can see, there's very broad, this is a logarithmic distribution, so there's huge variation. Next slide, please. So what we did is we grouped the projects to analyze them in 3 axes. How bankable are they? So can you get a return on profit by investing in these projects? Geographically, who do they serve? Do they serve the entire region, non-geolocated, like a digital project? Do they serve an individual country primarily, or are they multiple countries? And then third is the budget size, in which there's a variation, but the most fundamental one is if you compare it relative to the people who it's helping, is it nationally affordable? Can a country bank it or not? Next slide, please. So we grouped the big takeaway is that if we look at these projects, what is actually getting done in the 3Cs initiative? What you do is you trace the financing and how would these projects actually get implemented? And there are 3 different ways. One are clearly bankable. That's the ones that the private sector can take care of on its own. They'll just they'll get a return on profit, and we don't need to worry about that. Second one is ones that are not bankable, but they're not geolocated. So they're over the whole country. And in this case, those are typically digital projects. Their budgets are very small. So it is very conceivable that we could fund them, but it's unclear exactly who should. Second is national projects, where it's natural that the country in question should fund them, but it might be too expensive. And third is the large multinational projects, where there needs collaboration between people. And this last category, category 4, is the most important for 3Cs, because that's a collaboration between different countries and such. Next slide, please. So as you can see, if we analyze the project by types, there's a severe underfunded ratio in the energy sector. The energy projects are not getting funded. Transport is doing okay, and digital is doing okay, though that's a very minuscule part of the total budget. But energy in particular is not being funded. Next slide, please. We're going to skip this. That's what, same thing. It's not being funded. And so the question is, which of the multinational projects, the large energy projects, got funded? And the reason is, as you can see here, there's only really one national, multinational pipeline that got funded, and that was in particular by Poland. And Poland set up some infrastructure that was able to do this. And if you trace the funding and where the funding comes from, almost all of the large projects get their money from the Connecting Europe facility. And so the question is that the decisions and the choice of which projects actually get funded is made in Brussels at Connecting Europe and based on the decisions that they made. Next slide, please. In the mid 2010s, there was a decision that was made in Connecting Europe to focus more on renewable and sustainable things rather than pipelines. There became a suspicion to investing in pipelines. So as a result, there were no funding for pipelines. This is different than for transportation infrastructure, because in transportation infrastructure, there's not a final investment decision that's made. You can build a road in Poland separately to Romania, and they're going to both serve their local purposes. So you can do it modularly. But with a pipeline, you can't just build a section where there's no natural gas flowing. So there needs to be an organization that does that funding. And so the Connecting Europe did not do that. And so these pipelines didn't get built. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We're going to skip this. So the fundamental takeaway of all of this is that 3Cs is an infrastructure project in particular. Many infrastructure projects are not being funded. The reason they're not being funded is because the funding apparatus itself is based in Brussels and isn't tied fundamentally to security concerns. People have been tying the climate concerns into economic concerns. But if you overhaul it and you think of this as a security organization, which it is, it's security through economics and economic infrastructure, we need to have a more focus within the initiative on these security concerns. And so recommendation there is that we should emphasize that on all levels, the United States, the EU, they should be that. But in particular, the 3Cs countries itself should probably have some small nominal budget and have people in there that are focused in making the point to people that this is not just about economics, that there needs to be a security dimension to this. Thank you. And I do not think we have any time for questions. Very.
But usefully, this was absolutely not. Very much. What I'm going to do is we're going to get a very quick, because we sectioned in a larger coffee break for about 15 minutes. I'm going to allow for because we have the coffee here and the water and the cookies, for a 5-minute break, and then we immediately start with the panel and give it more time, take away from the coffee break we had designated. Okay, 5-minute break. Okay, thanks.